All right. Hello. Let me make sure that this is popping up. I might be able to grab the chat from here. I might not be able to grab the chat from my phone. But I don't really anticipate there being much in the way of chatting today, which is fine. I'm here to talk about this new tool that I made called soundpainter.io, and it is a ambient sound designer, kind of a sound composer for your TTRPG audio needs. It just came out April 24th. I think it's very powerful and a very unique take on TTRPG audio with a little bit of a learning curve that hopefully seems to disappear quickly when you dive in with it. Yeah, let's just dive in right away. I think with these streams, I'm going to be streaming a lot, probably over the next few months. And I think one thing I maybe will start by doing is just starting with the tutorial each day. So this is the tutorial. Let's run through it so that if you have no bearings at all for how SoundPainter works, this is how it works. Any sound in your world can be brought into SoundPainter. Here are some ideas to get you started. So let's go to the official URL as well. Not that it matters. If you want to see the dev side of things, you're welcome to go to that dev link and see the experimental builds. So let's run up a tutorial. All right, welcome to SoundPainter. I'm going to show you how this works. It'll only take a few minutes. Any sound in your world can be brought into SoundPainter. Here are some ideas to get you started. So you can right-click anything from this drop-down, hear it. And then you can drag these onto the board where they become these chips that represent the sounds. The board has like zones that affect how things sound. We can move things to the left and they sound like they're coming from the left. This is a progressive effect too. And you can move things to the right and they sound like they're coming from the right. This is a looping chip, so it's just going to keep making sounds. We can double click it to see what's going on with this sound. Single clicking looping chips is going to transition them from this active state to this inactive state where they're not playing. Also click and drag and then delete. So that's sort of the full life cycle of sounds within the SoundPainter schema is bring sounds in, they become chips on the board, take them out. That's the whole loop. So this is going to teach us about how to use the rest of the board areas and the rest of the types of the chips. So it says this is a one-shot chip. Click it to hear the thing. We've got our chickens in our world, maybe, and it's starting to rain. Guide is placing down another rain chip here. That's a looping chip. So now this rain chip and this chicken chip are both making sounds here. Turn that down just a little bit. Hopefully that's good. And then, so I bet the chickens want to get out of the rain. And this is kind of the whole concept here, or like, I guess what's the right word? Philosophy of SoundPainter is that the sounds in your world are represented on this board, and this board represents a simplified version of your world. So how can we separate rain sounds and chicken sounds in a meaningful way? Well, we can bring these chickens out of the rain, put them down here. You can hear they start to sound muffled. Like you can hear them and they're nearby, but you can't hear them clearly, right? It works best when you move a chip that's in a nearby space here into the muffle zone, somewhere where you can still hear it, but it sounds like it's nearby. Another thing you might use this is for if like a player is trapped in like a coffin or something, or a closet or whatever, or there's a dog barking outside of a door. It does that like instantly. This is the listener token, and it represents where you're listening from. So there's this spotlight effect on the board, and that represents how far you can hear. You can change its size with a slider that's coming in a little bit, and you can use the scroll wheel while you're dragging it too. But for now, we want to just get the concept that the listener token's over here, the chickens are in the dark, so you can't hear them at all. If we hit the thunder right now, you can still hear that. But if we bring it out, you can't hear it. So you can fill your board with all these sounds that are happening in the world, and then you can use the listener token to kind of give you different audio vantage points on them. So let's drag the listener token down here. You can hear, sounds like we're inside and it's raining outside. But you can hear the chickens clearly now, right? So it flips the effect here, where now the rainstorm is muffled and the chickens are audible, whereas here the rainstorm is audible and the chickens are muffled. So this is the whole concept of like a nearby space. This bottom right pocket is like a nearby space. So the guide puts on let's go back in the chicken coop because it's raining out. Our players are like hiding from the rain, right now in the session that we're playing. So it's going to teach us how to make a flip chip. You can select any two chips and hit enter, and it'll create a flip chip. So right now this flip chip is playing the moon side, which is the rain, but we can long press it to switch to the sun side and vice versa, and it changes what's playing. So you can kind of use this to do like two states, like maybe resting and like active, or night and day, or rain and birds, or fighting and like doing a chant or something. Anything that has two simple states that you can flip between, you can set that up as a flip chip. We'll put the listener token away now. And then we're going to learn about the last board zone here, which is the space zone, which is like reverb. So here's a church bells sound, and this church bells sound has been brought in as an intermittent chip, which is one of the other basic chip types. So at this point you have all the basic chip types, and the intermittent chips play every so often. You can also click them once to make them play on command. And the space part of the board works the same as the chicken coop in this case, the muffle zone part of the board, in the sense that if you drop in here, it applies reverb to everything out here. So it flips the effect. So one thing you could do is if your whole scene is in reverb, let me just make this a little louder. Oh, it's already max volume. You can hear how those birds are in the reverb, or like if we go like this, it gets really intense. So you can use this to basically set up a board level reverb, right? This little cave here is a small room reverb, and the big cave is a big reverb. So there's two different like types of spaces here, and they blend equally as well. So if everything here is happening in a small room or a barn, you could drop the listener token here and set up your whole scene like that. You might want to turn off the proximity effect if you do that, which is easy to do. So we're gonna go back here to, let's just go to home for now. I'll go over a couple of those things. So here's what the listener token like listening range looks like, and you can change that when you're dragging with the scroll wheel. So you could get pretty advanced with these like gestures, or I think by default it's at about this size, which is like giving us some level of, okay, I can only hear some places and I can't hear others, right? There's also this there's this like corridor along the bottom, and if I hit A right now, it'll bring up the overlay to show you like where everything is. There's this corridor along the bottom where you can move from like no listener proximity. So here's like tight listener proximity, right? If you want to just use this to basically do the inside-outside effect, there's this corridor along the bottom where the proximity effect isn't there, right? So if you want to flip like this, you can do it like that. And it'll cast red here to show like, okay, the red, now all this stuff is muffled, right? High heels muffled. Or you can use this corridor along the bottom, which allows you to just like apply the effect or apply the reverb. Why that's this pip shouldn't be here. I'm still working through kinks absolutely on this project. But yeah, that's the basic board concept. And let's like check out a couple of like things that I've made with this tool. Okay, so here's some kind of jungle. And when you look at this board, you can see like there's a few looping things that are happening here. I guess a big thing to go over is like controls. So for looping chips, a single click is going to turn things from deactivated to activated. Let's see if that's working just like it should. These streams, and I'm going to be doing these streams every day, are going to also help me to like fix everything that's wrong with this. I think I saw it flash to opaque there. Yeah, at the end. So let's fix that. Things to fix. Deactivating a looping chip. At the end of its fade out, it briefly moves to opaque instead of just solidly becoming transparent. Cool. Alright, yeah, and then there's like this bird sound down here, which is in the reverb zone. So you can really use that to like change the way that a place feels. Like, you know, if the birds are like in this big reverb area, it makes it feel like you're in like a canyon, like at the beginning of like Jumanji. If they're in this little area here, it kind of just feels like you're in the forest. And you can, let's start getting into the chip controls. You can change the volume of stuff, and you can kind of get a mix that suits you, right? And you can build all this stuff on the fly. So let's see like a tiger roar. So this is the search feature, and it's a really deep library of sounds that has like so much in it and so much cross tagging that you're sometimes going to get results that don't match exactly what you're looking for. So there's two views here. There's the single view, which is like how I built the app initially, and then there's this expanded view, which I think is more like probably going to be most people's speed. And then there's this temperature toggle right here. On cold, well, on this expanded view, you've got all three pools here at the same time, right? So cold is like stuff that, based on the ranking I've built, is supposed to and hopefully will match what you want as directly as possible. It does this by like looking at what kind of sounds have been used already in official scenes or community scenes, and there's some other things that it's doing too, where it's basically like taking like, if I change this to frog, right? Now even though frog isn't in the name of this sound, like it's going to cross-reference that and say like, okay, sometimes when you want a frog, this sound applies. So over time, these search results should get better and better. Let's move to the next step, which is like, okay, in my game world, there's like a tiger emerging from the forest, right? And I'm going to explain one thing real quick here, which is this broadcast button up in the top right. So you can broadcast to your players in Foundry VTT, or through a browser link, or through Discord. And what I'm about to show you, which is the preview, is not going to be heard by your players. So in the middle of your session, right, maybe something happens. In this case, a tiger is emerging from the forest. I can use the right click on my mouse as I'm holding over here to hear just the sound, right? Okay, so that's like kind of a chill tiger. Maybe this recording was done at a zoo. There's something that's a little more punchy, maybe closer to what we want. Okay. Oh, that one almost sounds like a piece of stone being moved. Oh, that's a good one, right? I happen to know that this type of sound sounds really cool in reverb, by the way. And now you can make it sound like there's like a tiger in this cave with you. Like maybe a cave at the edge of a waterfall. Let's say we wanted to do something like, there's a few ways to do this, right? So we could like be in the middle of things with our players and do something like this. Like, oh, we're like traveling through the forest by a certain river, a certain stream, another one. You can kind of create these different vantage points, which works better and better the more stuff is going on the board. But as you're learning this tool, I think it's helpful to have like some simple stuff. As we get closer to here, maybe your players are starting to notice that there's a creature around here worth paying attention to, right? Maybe you're like getting further into the cave and the waterfall is less audible. You're doing this long dramatic approach towards the end of a cave. And let's say that's how you wanted to design this scene, right? Maybe there would be all these different steps along the way. So like that could be one way you could approach this, is to have like, here's where my players are going to start in the top right. And like maybe this scene for you is a journey from like here to here, and the proximity effect does all this work, right? Or maybe you set up some kind of path that's like this, or maybe you set up like a city where there's like different things and it's kind of laid out like your map and you can move around it, right? So a lot of ideas going on there, but I wanted to show you how to bring a sound into the world. And we're still in the explore mode, so we're just kind of messing around with like this pre-made scene, but the search still works. So you can bring stuff in like that. We've got these different types of chips, right? Which we kind of absorbed a little bit during the tutorial. So let's now take a look at the focus menu here. And there's a guide up here, which you can use to either quickly get started or check out all these concepts in detail. If any of this is not clear, please let me know. I will adjust this to make it more clear. But these chip controls can all be found right here, right? So we've got our main chip modes, right? And right now you're only hearing this because the solo's on. Another thing we have in there. I'm gonna take just a little bite of my breakfast here. But these different modes, playback modes, or chip types, are on this purple button. So maybe instead of this world being like built around the idea of us encountering a tiger, maybe like the tigers are just like an ambient part of the environment. And so we want something like this to just kind of hint at the idea of a tiger nearby somewhere. And we leave it at this cracked intermittent chip, which you can see the little hourglass on top is letting us know that this guy's waiting to play. And we can change the interval of how often it plays with these sliders here, or these little presets that kind of say like, okay, every so often, or, you know, fairly often, or something that happens really often. And if we let that sit for anywhere from 5 to 10 seconds, oh, that looks like, okay, right, because we're in, is that gonna let me? I think maybe I have a bug here related to the fact that we're in the explore mode. Explore mode. Chip. Like intermittent. Chip. Interval changes not persistent. Looks like maybe it is persisting in some sense because those are coming pretty soon one after the other, but it's definitely not showing that in the interval here. But let's keep moving. Bear with me here as we're making improvements to all this. So here's another one that I'd say is set up mostly like an ambience here. This night scene is something I built pretty early on while making this app. So you've just got like elements of an ambience. I think this is a good way to approach the app like at first, is like, okay, well, I want to create an ambience and I want to be granular about what's actually in my world, which I think is really SoundPainter's strengths. Strength is like, okay, maybe I want a jungle or maybe I want a meadow or whatever, but I really want to be able to say like, what's in my world? And the atomic unit of this whole thing is these individual chips. You can hear there the bats are going. Maybe the bats are in a cave. Them sound like they're in a cave. I love this sound. And so, finish my thought there. I think a great way of using this, or like getting your feet wet with this, is to just say, all right, I want an ambience, but instead of making it out of a single sound, I'm going to make it out of like maybe a bed, like some wind, something that can act as kind of a bed, and then think about the individual things that I want in this world and set them all up as interval chips, like intermittent chips. That way, every so often, different things play. I think that's a good way to do it. In this explore mode, we're basically checking out everything that's available in like the pre-made area of the app, which is this town square up here. So there's a feed and a browse section on the town square, and the feed is just going to show you everything that gets shared. Like you can come on the app, you can make a scene, and you can share it right now, and it'll appear right here. There's these kind of like TCG inspired cards that represent each scene, and you can right click to hear what this scene sounds like. This is like the big beautiful version of this view. The browse is just everything that's been published, and you can search through it. You can also like look by category. Oh, I don't want that to change size. Town square, browse, view, changing size dependent on filtering. Should remain static in size. But you can like filter for stuff, and right now I'm the only person who's crafting here, so we're thin, but I'm going to continue making scenes and sharing them. But like, let's say you want something specific, like maybe something with ocean or beach. You can find that by searching. I mean, everyone knows how a search works. This will show you only the like official published scenes. Without that on, it's everything official and community, and I think that's going to be like how it's going to work best. You can bookmark stuff if you're like, oh, you know what, I might want to check that out later, or you can add things to your chest. This button here will basically, with it on, it'll include stuff that's already in your chest, right? Or with it off, it'll exclude stuff that's already in your chest. So here it's like, by default, it's like, show me everything except the stuff that's already in my chest, which is like the stuff that you own, right? And then all the filters can be configured from there. And then if you want to add something to your chest, all you have to do is hit add. It'll add it to your chest. It just disappeared from that view there, since we're filtering out stuff that's already in the chest. Or if you want to hit add and go, like say you're in the middle of a session and your players end up going somewhere and you want to quickly pull up like, you know, some kind of a forest. Ideally, eventually, there's a bunch of forests here. you can open this up, right click, right? You can hear this with the right click, and your players don't hear it if you're broadcasting. Again, all the previous stuff doesn't get sent to your players. And then you can add and go, and it'll transition from the scene that you were in into the scene that you picked. So that's kind of how I envision this working best once we have a bigger content library, which I'll be publishing, throughout these coming months, and hopefully alongside a community that's creating with this too. Is that you'll basically be like, okay, when I need something, I can grab it from here and I can just go, right? And this scene bar acts as basically a set of like sonic moments, or a set of places that you can visit and you can transition between them cleanly. So if we go like this, we can do this thing of kind of like changing from one scene to another. This slider right here represents how long it takes to get from one to the next. So you can do really gentle transitions. And so like in its most basic form, you could just say like, okay, there's 10 ambiences I want. 10 is like the maximum for this scene bar at the top. Although you can chain together multiple locales. Each scene bar represents a single locale. And this whole scheme is outlined in the guide here. Campaigns, sessions, locales, and scenes. So you could just say, I want 10 different ambiences ready to go, put them on your scene board, and use this just as like an ambience switcher, right? During the session. It'd be like, okay, we're in the forest now, we're going to do that, do a nice slow transition. Maybe we go into a tavern later, we go into a tundra, whatever, however specific. All the way down to, you decide you want to build your scenes from scratch out of the granular sounds that are in your world, and lay them out in specific ways on the board so that you can create multiple vantage points, or set up like interesting sort of like interactive moments. Like one of the ones I have set up that shows this directly. Yeah, it looks like this is already in our chest. So here's the chest. This is like all the scenes that you've either made or you've like pulled down from the town square. The starship one is a good example of something that's like pretty specific. So you can see right away that the listener token is out by default on this scene. It's one that's kind of designed to be used with the listener token. And so it's like supposed to sound like being on board. Oh, like there's a bug there. Switching scene to scene on the bar after adding a scene from chest. Transitioned correctly, but then looping chips briefly stopped before restarting. So this scene is designed to be like multiple ambiences. Right now you can hear that's on your right. What of a harsh sound. You can go all the way down to like setting up something really specific like this. Like I made this little section over here to sound like you're going into like maybe the science area of the ship. And so these, I kind of laid these out like a door or whatever. Then I used the muffle zone to like make it sound like you're like in some like experimental laboratory with some creature you've recovered from this mission or whatever. So you can get really involved, but you don't have to get involved either. Totally up to you. Yeah. So that's a little bit of an overview, yes. I was so fortunate to have somebody check this out on a stream this morning, and it like allowed me to see a lot of things that can be improved with it. Oh, looks like a bug too. Transitioning away from the scene seems to momentarily drop the listener tokens. Proximity effect. But yeah, yeah. There's a director mode up here, and the idea with this is that basically, like, you have your, go ahead and archive these just so it looks a little more clean. So when you first start using Sound Painter, you're going to be dumped into the workshop. The workshop is like a set of, it's a locale, right? So you can have more than one scene on the top there. It's what we've been in this whole time as we've been like experimenting in our home when we weren't exploring. So here's a locale that's like filled up, right? Here what that was. Let's just call that rapidly bug. Rapidly click adding scenes to a locale. The final scene didn't make it. Briefly appeared and then disappeared. And so here's a full locale, right? Now, this is your workshop locale, so it's like where you're working on stuff. You can double click these scene cards to go to these places, and it'll bring you there. And apparently it won't. Double click scene in the director mode is sending to an empty board instead of a board that's playing and full of the desired sounds. We can refresh here. Good. Oh, apparently not. It's not going to take care of it. Oh, you know what happened is it saved over it. That's a big one. And I've been battling that bug for a while, so we'll see. But this is your workshop locale. And when you're ready to start a campaign, you'll go like this. You'll be like, you know, this is my like Thursday group. And it's going to make a session. So this session is like basically one night of play. And you can say like, okay, we're going to be in a jungle. And this is like maybe like Jungle Coast region. And this is going to be a named locale. So this is like the workshop, only it has a name, and it's where you might set up your different scenes that you want to be available for this like region in your game world. You can go in here and do another one. You could say like, maybe this is like a specific city or village, and that village has stuff in it. Let's see if I set this up correctly. If I click, it should go into that new one. Okay, cool. And so maybe like you've set up multiple locales for your session, right? We'll take the bathhouse and put it there, right? And then the idea is that, okay, you know, go and you enter your session. And now on the left, you've got your session is that. enter session on director mode. To get into a campaign is sending to an empty locale, not any of the locales in that campaign. So that should take you to the first locale, like it is here. And then, you know, you can move around your areas in this part of the world, right? And then you've got your other locales here on the left, and you can choose when you're ready to like move from a locale to a locale. You can choose like, okay, maybe we're in the forest right now, right? And we come to a clearing where there's this like little bathhouse place, like a little outdoor spa or whatever. So you can choose where you go in the next locale. And that's basically the full flow, other than the fact that that night of play is over, right? And you're ready to start another night of play. When you do that, it'll archive that. So it's still there. You can still visit these places by hitting visit here. And if you make changes to the scenes in the future, it's not going to affect that copy. But now you're ready to set up the locales for your next night of play. You'll also notice up here in the top right, you can recall locales that you've already been to. So like if there's recurring places in your campaign, they start to populate this campaign locales area at the top right here, and you can recall them. Yep. And there's also the ability for these locales to get versioned over time as they change, but honestly, that's only going to apply to somebody who's really deep in this. So let's just go back to the workshop and let's dump everything out of the workshop back into the chest. Maybe there should be a clear workshop button. Go here. Let's see if that correctly dismisses things. Okay. So I was watching somebody use this morning, and I guess a couple of things happened. So let's do like a sewing machine. You can use this filter right here to like say, oh, I want only sounds of a certain length. And there's an aspect of digging here. There's a lot of sounds in here. This is going to require you to name it because everything needs to belong in a scene. And the idea is to like set things up so that, you know, you don't just end up with like a bunch of stuff. So what would this be like? Living quarters of some kind. So there's a sewing machine here. A couple other things I want to point out that were tough for somebody learning this for the first time this morning. They were getting into a scenario where they were like needing to not have sound for a minute. So there's this master mute button at the bottom here. You can also just silence a sound quickly by dropping it into this void at the bottom. And that's part of the, again, I hit A to make that happen. Part of the overlay here, that's the mute section. So that's one way that you could bring a sound into the world, like almost like bringing it up with a fader, only you're moving it around on this board to make it happen, right? Let's talk about a few other things that happen. So this person was like looking to make a series of things happen. I think in their idea, or in their like scheme, it was like, well, briefly, that they were looking for like an explosion. That sounds pretty good. So let's set that up as a loop, right? Here, I'll describe what they were trying to do. They were trying to make it sound like there was explosions going off in this scene, and then there was like a crowd of people screaming, and then it was followed by like a town bell ringing. And they were like kind of struggling to set this up. So I guess this does touch on a thing that I haven't done in the stream yet, which is multi-chips. So getting multiple sounds into a single chip. Let's think of something that like chatters along. So like, how about a bird sound? We'll do this and we'll get some really short bird sounds. Those are all great. I might add some way to, what did I search for that? I might have just searched for it. Some way for us to like grab multiple things at once. But for now, there's so much that can be optimized here, you know? Let's just say we want to first wrap our head around the ideas of multi-chips. So this is like your advanced chip type. It's like one chip, many sounds, right? So how you do it is you select your multiple sounds, you hit enter, it's going to make a single sound, and then you have like controls to set how these work. So by default, right, it's just made us a multi one-shot. So if I click this, I think, yeah, okay, so it's going to auto advance. So it's going to play one, and then it's going to auto advance. These pips at the top are showing us like what sound is queued up. What the heck? There we go. Okay, so it's just bad luck. So it's set to random right now. So it's going to randomly move from one sound to the next. The highlighted pip shows you like what's about to play. You can also like go in here and like force select one. So let's make this one really short so it's just very easy to understand that. Right? They really want that short one at some moment because maybe you've got a round robin chip like this that's, you know, set up to do something more complicated than just be a bird with various calls. Well, you can go in here and you can, you know, specifically queue up one of those sounds before you do it, right? You can also use this button up here, which will advance the state of all of the chips on the board that are multi-chips. And this works just like regular chips in the sense that there's a playback mode. So we can set this to be a short chattering bird, right? And this is something you might very well do. If you're looking at an intermittent chip like this and you're wondering why it's not making sound, it's because intermittent chips, just like every other chip, right? Here's like the sewing machine, right? We want to be able to turn these on and off, right? Well, intermittent chips are the same. You long press an intermittent chip to turn it on or off. So when an intermittent chip is active, it'll either be showing you pips, hourglass pips to say that it's waiting, or it will be playing something, right? So there's our intermittent chip set up to, you know, actually do something that's basically relevant to a potential game world, right? So now that you have the context for that, and we can switch through these different modes, and the mode applies to all of the members, right? Then you can also break this apart and swap stuff out or whatever you can create, and also uncreate your multi-chips as well. But I'll just leave those there for now. So we were trying to make like something like a sequential sequence with that. So we got the explosions here. Now let's get like the crowd panic type of sound. That's pretty good. A little quiet. And then they had said when they were making this scene that they wanted to, and I'm doing some stuff here like that's obvious to me, but I should say it out loud. So like, because I know I'm gonna set these up as a sequence where it's like a state is happening and then another state is happening and then another state is happening, and I don't want any gaps in between. I know I'm gonna set these up as looping chips, so they're always gonna be setting up a like a constant set of sounds. So here I'm gonna pick something that's like somewhat long, so that I know, like, yeah, I think that's a good one for like, okay, there's a panic and then, you know, the whole town is alerted, right? And this is interesting too, because you might want some of these to be happening at the same time. So I'm going to show you two ways to set this up. So first of all, we can create this like this state remembering sequential chip. We can call it like attack, or like, what is that? 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. Like, okay, so village raid, right? Something like that. So now these explosions start, right? Well, that's interesting. Do we need members of a playing, looping, round robin ship? Do they need to have playheads / be playing when they're not the audible chip? Good though. At the moment, it appears that they are. So up here we've got like the order. So like for this bird chip that we had made, you can rename stuff like this. The order was random, which is what we want, you know, something that just like picks another sound to play. But for this, we definitely want it sequential. So we click this button, and now they'll play in order, right? And now for this round robin that's looping, we can long press it to advance to the next state. So let's do this. And so this is what they wanted to set up for this sound. Sorry, it's a little silly to have the sewing machine going this whole time. But that's how you could do that, right? If you wanted these to be individual sound. What I think is cool is there's like a million ways to approach the same problem with this tool. So I think what I would probably do is something like this. I would like maybe set this up like this, and then I would go like this. And I would like maybe be like, okay, first the explosions are happening, and then you're getting explosions and panic. And then like once the town gets alerted, you're getting all of them. And if this is happening among a scene, I mean, it's a little chaotic and crazy right now, but you know, if you sit and craft, and my friend Aaron put this really well. He was like, if you're creative enough to be a DM, you're creative enough to use Sound Painter. That's the thing, is like, you know, you can get some crazy stuff, but you can also get this, you know, get things prepped in a way where you're getting really smooth results. One thing that I do quite often is for like crowd sounds, muffle them just a bit. And then maybe like some like sword fight sounds or something. I might do something like this. I might like slice this into a few different sections, right? Do this. This. Would I want to do the same exact thing here? Yeah, maybe. Set this to intermittent as well. And then set it up as a few different things. A few different slices of the same thing. And you might do this with your crowd sound as well down here, so that it's not all just the same loop, right? And you can also like layer on ambience from YouTube. Let's get these all chattering so it sounds crazy. At this point, you got something. Maybe the sword fights seem to be muffled a little bit. And I'm moving really quick here, but you get the idea. You can get like things built up pretty quickly here. I think I would only want that first one there. What else do I want here? I always want like a big ship, like ship rocking. Okay. Maybe this is more what I'm looking for. Uh-oh. Okay, so there's some sounds we don't want in there. Go back to here. So this would be like a harbor panic scene. Get rid of that for a minute. Does YouTube show me how long I've been live? I don't think so. I'm going to show you one last thing here. You can change this picture in here, and then you can publish. So there's like these major categories which it tries to figure out on its own. In this one, we've got people, we've got combat, we've got, I would say, no technology. This is all pretty non-technological. There's a little bit of nature, but the essence of this scene is much more weather people. Actually, yeah, this is pretty much just weather people combat. So we can do a publish here, and we can say it's called Harbor Panic, tags, maybe sword fight, combat, raid. Come up with a description for this. Maybe this would be better as a intermittent chip too. Yeah, that's feeling like a cohesive thing for me. Maybe if you were getting into the fray of the sword fight, it would sound like... Uh-oh. Oh, I goofed. Oh, I goofed. Oh, I really done it now. Okay, so I've got to fix that. Apparently there's a... Maybe if I double-click here, it should return as well. But yeah. I think this was a good stream to start off. There's so much I want to do with this and build out, but like I'm like up against two things. I'm like, one, there's a little bit of a learning curve to figure out how to use it. Two, there's a lot of bugs still that I'm working on, and well, I guess those are the main things. I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty happy with it overall. It's definitely somewhat involved. But hopefully this showcases this. I think for some people, this is really going to be powerful. And so I just hope the right people find it and let me know what they like about it and what they don't like about it, and I'll continue to work on it from there. I think that's a good place to stop the stream for today, because I used to stream a fair amount, but I'm definitely like out of the swing and out of the rhythm. Main thing for today I wanted to do was just get into the rhythm of streaming again and be present here, be excited about this thing I made, show it off a little bit, and I look forward to meeting people who are interested in this and having a chat about it. And yeah, if you're checking this out, thank you so much. I'll see you next time. I'm going to be streaming daily for a while, so each day we'll get a little further, each day we'll do a little better. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.